Hi, everyone. Thanks for dropping by. My name is Kristen Ashly, and this is The Division, Fightful's podcast dedicated to women's wrestling. Bi-weekly, I'll be joined by a rotating pool of panelists to discuss women's wrestling news, matches, debate topics, whatever we decide to pull out for that particular episode, whatever's relevant. I'm very excited for this episode. We have a first-timer on a Fightful podcast, Harmony Cox. She's a writer for Daily DDT and co-host of Head Over Heels, which is a women's wrestling and pop culture podcast. Now you can say hello to the audience.
Yes. I'm sorry, I got excited. Hi, everybody.
And you should know my other panelist by now. He's on almost every Fightful podcast in existence and hosts the Mr. Warren Hayes show multiple times weekly. Why don't you acknowledge the folks, Warren?
Hello, folks. It's me, Mr. Warren Hayes. And hello, Kristen, and hello, Harmony. It's a pleasure to be here.
That's great. Like every episode, we'll discuss a few news stories that have stood out. And then this week, we'll actually touch on Women's History Month, as well as predict the loving Fastlane. We'll go ahead and get started. First, I just want to talk about what seems to be in the news everywhere. Is Ronda Rousey works herself into a damn shoot. And there'll be a lot of people out there who say that, no, it's WWE. They're just telling her to act like this. No, they're not. She's legitimately she's working herself into a shoot for real. There's been multiple people that have come out and spoke on that. Diva Dirt had sources that said she was legitimately mad. Fightful had sources that said she wasn't acting. WWE would never have given her permission to say some of the things that she has. And then there's been other people she's worked with over the years who have come out and said, no, this is typical Ronda. I'm not going to go into all the news stories because we don't have 14 hours. But, it started with the feud with Becky Lynch on Twitter. Then it went to, well, I don't need WWE. I don't need this job. And then there's comments on, wrestling being fake. She went out and said the F word. And now we've got this ultimate heel turn. But before we get to this weird heel turn, I want to hear your thoughts on this, Harmony, because I'm really interested in what you think about Ronda in the past couple weeks.
I guess my main thought about Ronda is that I'm very confused about what she's trying to accomplish, and I mostly just wish she would stop.
Right.
That's where I'm at. I don't think she's good at this. I don't think she's good at professional wrestling. I don't think she's good at doing a character. I don't think she's good in the ring. Her heel turn was actually what I was looking forward to because it seemed like it would be more kind of in line with her personality and what she was comfortable with. So I thought maybe some of her discomfort and awkwardness came from the fact she was being a face and she just wasn't very suited to it. And, we've seen that with wrestlers where they try to take on a persona or another and it's not a good fit. So I tried to give her the benefit of the doubt. And now her heel turn has just somehow even been worse. And I don't understand it. I wish she would stop. That's where I'm at with Ronda.
Now you said you were looking at her videos prior to the show.
Yes. So to prepare for this, I watched her videos. I watched her YouTube channel. And I'm so tired of Ronda and so annoyed with her that I watch them through a VPN. So because I do not want to reward her bad behavior with clicks. Sorry.
She's like a child.
Yeah, it's just no attention for you, Ronda. And if you've watched the video where she went on her latest F-bomb wrestling isn't real rant, it's so weird because Natalya is in the beginning of the video. They're eating cheesesteaks together. They're hanging out. They seem to be having fun. And then later on, Ronda is I guess I think she's in a hotel room and she's wearing an RKO sweatshirt. It looks like a Randy Orton shirt. She talks about how excited she is that the Shield reunited. And then she immediately pivots into, oh, by the way, wrestling is bullshit and you're all assholes for watching it. It's what? What is happening here, Ronda Rousey?
Well, you sort of, kind of wonder, if she wants to say that, when you think about it, she has a history of calling stuff fake, right? Wrestling is fake. Sandy Hook was fake.
Yeah.
That was my controversial hot take.
Oh, I was like, why are you pausing after that?
I just thought it was true. I didn't know it was a hot take. That's just accurate.
Yeah, that's just actually happened. That's called news. Maybe the cheesesteaks like settled wrong, because I've been in that boat, you know, like your stomach doesn't feel well and you just say things that are dumb later on, who knows. I think it's very counterintuitive. I think, like, you know, if WWE is actually, now they might be buying into it, right? Because now it's already happened and they can't erase what's already been put out there. So maybe they're just like, okay, now let's just roll with it. But, like, it seems very counterintuitive to be a wrestler and say, don't watch wrestling.
Yeah.
Or to be buying into this gimmick and then say, you know, these gimmicks are fake, right? They're just written. Like, well, first off, duh. Anybody who's older than like 6 understands kayfabe. They know what's going on. But it just seems very counterintuitive to even let her talk at this point. Now, I believe it was on her own, right? It was on like Ronda on the Road or some shit where she said all this stuff. So maybe they don't have like territory over that part of her life. Maybe they can't say anything about it. But it seems very, as a human being with any brains about business or a job, it seems very counterintuitive to say, don't buy my product, even though I want to survive and eat.
Yeah, like her whole. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I just wanted to say that it's even, you know, it's even stranger when you are holding the top title in the company. You know, you can argue about the Raw or SmackDown's title, you know, which is bigger. But I think right now, you know, there's no question that the Raw Women's title is much bigger. It is the flagship of the women's division right now. So it's really weird to have your champion come out and say, and start, you know, and bitching about it.
Right.
Yeah, it's and there's this weird underlying assumption that we want wrestling to be real. Like, I don't want people to actually get killed in the ring. I want the tables to be worked. I don't want people to actually get punched in the face. I don't want anyone to get their arm broken because I'm not a monster. I don't know why Ronda thinks we're all going to be shocked by the idea they're not actually punching each other. Everybody knows that. There's MMA. There are places we can see that. We watch wrestling for a different thing. And the fact that she fixates on the fact it's not real and think it's going to be like this super awesome burn against the WWE audience, to me, it just indicates that she doesn't really get what she's doing.
Well, and that's the point, right? When you mentioned MMA. So, right. So maybe she's not, I mean, the audience is not the same. There could be crossover, but the majority of wrestling, that the fan base is not an MMA fan base. And we know the difference. So if you're like selling to us like you would to an MMA audience, don't, because we're not the same audience. We realize that there's a difference. Do I want somebody to actually get knocked out in MMA? Yeah, of course, because that's what it's built upon. I don't really want anybody to actually get a cement brick thrown at their head in wrestling like that one guy did. You know, I don't want that to happen because you could die. That's the difference, and you're right. And I think that's where she really could have benefited from extra time training and maybe promo school or just going into NXT before being thrown right into Raw, because Baszler's picked up on it. There are other even male MMA fighters who have picked up on this coming into WWE. And I would argue that Duke and Shafir are also getting that training and that built up to realize that there is a huge difference. And, you know, people use that for an excuse. Well, she's new. Okay, well, I understand that's not her fault, but she could just close her mouth once in a while and she would probably be fine, I would say.
Well, I mean, I think there's a lot of has to go. There's a lot that has to do with personality as well. You know, like even though like I have no doubt that she really likes wrestling. That she's always been a wrestling fan. I have no doubt about it. You know, that I'm not putting into question. But, you know, at some point, you know, there's certain public behavior that we've seen Ronda Rousey do before that we're seeing here again. And, you know, a couple of weeks ago, she completely choked on Raw, right? Yeah, when she had promo time, she just stood there. The audience was heckling the hell out of her. She just completely froze. That's one part seasoning, but it's also one part personality. That means that from the get-go, she takes this perhaps way too bit more seriously than she should, you know, kind of thing. Misha Tate recently said that, you know, she's fought Misha Tate in UFC before, right? She's a female MMA fighter. She recently said that she knows that this got under Rousey's skin for real, the whole Becky Lynch Twitter situation. You know, she said that, you know, Ronda doesn't like it when you talk about her family, even if it's joking. She doesn't have a sense of humor. What else did she say? That she's not used to play by the rules. She's used to do her own thing. So, I mean, there's a lot of what we've seen that has a lot to do with her personality, and I don't know how much conditioning can really change that, especially if you're Ronda Rousey, where you've been in a hype bubble, you know, where you've been touted as this phenomenon, and you're being brought into WWE, as a phenomenon. You're like, at some point, I'd figure that your ego takes over, and you're like, well, treat me like a phenomenon, you know? And, but that being said, I really do believe that, like you said, Kristen.
Wow.
I'm sorry.
Wow. Next division podcast, we fire Warren Hayes.
Oh, thank God, I still have one more left.
Yeah, you're already on here. You got to get recorded, so
make it count, Warren.
But what Kristen said about, you know, WWE running, you know, just rolling with it at this point, I really do believe that's what they're doing. Because I honestly believe their plan was to have her be the penultimate babyface right into WrestleMania, and to have her face off against a strong heel, perhaps a Charlotte Flair. But the monkey wrench here, the sand in the gears, if you may, is Becky Lynch. She's the one who, you know, her organic turn, her popularity just derailed those plans. And let's not forget that that's one of the reasons, if not the main reason, why she derailed, why Ronda choked a couple of weeks ago on Raw, is because people were chanting for Becky much louder than anything else. And she was trying to talk, and they were booing her because they wanted Becky. And she didn't know how to deal with it. She had to follow the script. She had to follow the plan, whatever, but she didn't know how to deal with it. 2 weeks later, she turns. I don't think there's a mystery here. I think it's really like, well, screw it. Let's just turn her into a heel.
Yeah, and I mean, we haven't really talked a lot about the main question, was whether or not she's faking it or if she's actually this upset, because I think we all believe she's actually this upset. I think the evidence is pretty heavy, but there are plenty of people who saw this turn, and instead of saying this is proof that WWE was not really in touch with their audience, and instead like decided to switch up the whole storyline last second, they said, it was all part of their plan. No, I don't.
It wasn't.
How many do you agree? Do you think that it was a part of the plan or not?
I think that they're just dealing with the Ronda they have instead of the Ronda they want. I think you're right.
Yeah.
Like, that's very well put.
Yeah. But I also think like a lot of this comes down to WWE, like you guys said, pushing her before she was ready. Like they knew Ronda was a snake when they picked her up, you know?
Yeah.
None of this stuff is secret about Ronda Rousey. If they really thought that she was going to be this compliant sweetheart face, like for her entire run on Raw right up to WrestleMania, that's dumb, and that was on them. They chose to push her out of developmental. They chose not to put her on NXT. They made her the Raw Women's Champion like basically immediately. I think that they're just rolling with it, but it's also just like I don't understand how they didn't see this coming. I don't think it's fake, but I'm also just baffled by the fact that nobody realized this was going to happen to begin with, I guess.
It makes me wonder if Ronda actually had that as part of her original contract, that she didn't want to be in developmental. Because even Matt Riddle, like you look at his background, and I just saw on the network, he has some like documentary on his coming to WWE and NXT, and he even had this years build up before he even really got to NXT. So it makes no sense to me why they would not do that, because they've done it with almost every other single one. It's just baffling.
I think I have an answer for that, and I don't think it has anything to do whether Ronda wanted it or not. I think WWE didn't want her in NXT. Like she, you know, her name value still has a lot of weight in that tasty, sumptuous, moist, melt in your mouth mainstream media attention, right? and that's what WWE always craves for. That's what they want, you know. I've said this before, I'll say it again. WWE does not perceive itself as a wrestling promotion. They are a media company. So the more that they are able to break into the media and actually get some coverage, well, then they can, it just proves their point that they are beyond just wrestling. They can attract stars like Ronda Rousey, who's a crossover star as well, who's a household name. It would make, like, honestly, especially at the amount of money that they were paying her, it would make no sense to send her down to NXT and have her season herself while being paid the salary that she is. I'm pretty sure that this has, I'm not sure that this is on her. I think it's more on the company that they just wanted to put her in the on main roster as soon as possible. I
would disagree. I mean, she's an adult, right? Yes, you haven't had the training, but you know what to not to say. Okay, you know.
But then you have it. Go ahead, Kristen. Sorry, I thought you were done. No, it's fine. It's your show.
That's right. Like you said before, this isn't just, you know, a couple like random instances. This is her whole personality. So going into it, she has to have some sort of self-awareness. Like you can't just throw somebody in there and be like, well, it's on the company, they threw her in there. No, it's also on her as well. Like she's an adult. She shouldn't be babysat. She shouldn't have to be censored. It's on both of them, I think. And I think it wraps it up to this last point I want to make on Ronda, because I don't want to spend an hour on Ronda, please. Yeah. Will this then lead to her leaving for at least a break contractually after WrestleMania? Lauren, I know you're dying to talk, so go for it.
Thank you. Yes. Where does this leave her, contractually speaking?
Well, I mean, after WrestleMania, do you think she's going to take a break? What do you think is going to happen with it? Yeah.
Like, I think she should, like, regardless of whether the rumors are, oh, she wants to start a family or whatever, that kind of stuff doesn't matter. You know, if I were her, I would take a nice break. You know, wrestling fans have a tendency to miss people when they're not around. You know, it's like, oh, I can't wait. I'm looking forward to XY's return. So it would just be beneficial for her to just be off the cameras for a little while. Take some time off, let the women of the division do whatever they have to do in the meantime, then eventually come back. But she's prime for a little time off of the cameras. I think the media attention is getting to her right now.
Harmony, do you agree?
Yeah, I think the thing for Ronda that would really help her at this point is for her to take that break after WrestleMania and just not do house shows, not do anything, just be off TV until Shayna and the other 4 horsewomen are ready to come up, and then bring them back as a stable. Because I don't think she can handle the spotlight by herself. But if you look at the way Shayna's developed, she's much better at dealing with the WWE crowd. She's much like, I just think Shayna needs that spot, or I think Ronda needs that spotlight spread out to more people. I think she needs more support. Like, she shouldn't be in there by herself. And I think if they can set up like the MMA 4 horsewomen versus the NXT 4 horsewomen, if that can be like the next plot arc she's involved in, I think that would be much better. And it'll also give her some opportunity to kind of like shift back, spend some more time in the background, and maybe learn not how to take all of this so personally. And also, you know, then we have Charlotte in there. We have the other kind of like magnetic big WWE personalities like Becky Lynch, Sasha Banks, like, things will be a little more balanced, I think, if she can just hold back until they're ready to launch that.
And Harmony, I mean, isn't it wild to think though that in an instance where it's 4 horsewomen versus 4 horsewomen, that isn't it wild to think that Shayna Baszler would take a back seat to Ronda Rousey at this point in the world of professional wrestling, because Shayna's so good and she's grown into it so easily, and her character is perfect. Like, everything she does is outstanding. It's so weird, don't you think? It's weird to think of her as being second banana to Ronda.
I do think it's weird, but I think that the thing with Shayna is I think she could actually help Ronda out a lot because, like, I mean, Shayna was also a wrestler before she went to WWE. She wrestled in Stardom. She wrestled in AIW. Like, she knows how to handle these crowds. She knows how to do stuff. I don't think she should have to take the backseat to Ronda. I don't think that at all. But I think because of the way that WWE is playing this, that's what's going to happen.
No, that's it. That's what I mean.
Like, yeah, she should be the face of the company, as far as I'm concerned. Shayna Baszler forever. Shayna Baszler's face on a blimp. That's where I'm at. But
I agree. I'm a Shayna Baszler fangirl, I'll admit it. And I think you're right, Harmony. I think if she was to come back when those other three have made their way up, and that she left as a heel, and that was her return as a heel, that I think fans would be really into that, and they might be more favorable on her down the road if she was just to appear like we all want her to appear, and all need her to appear. But we're gonna stop with Ronda because I think we're done with Ronda for right now. We'll go on to the second news story. This last week, WOW, Women of Wrestling, had a conference. I will go on record that I knew this prior to them announcing it because I just want everybody to know that I knew. I was told by people within the company. I won't name names to be nice, but I was told by people within the company that they were going to be renewing a second season. And then I had told Sean that, who then put it on Fightful Select, subscribe, $5 a month. And so they had this media call. It was open to fans and to press. A couple notable things about it was, again, the second season on Access. They are going to do 24 episodes. I believe they said they're going to split it into 12 and 12. So it's going to be like a fall return and then a spring return. They are going to have a tag team tournament to determine tag titles next season, as well as somebody had asked him specifically, David McLean, the promoter, if he was going to add any more belts besides those two, and he said no, which I had asked him that before they had even started up on this season, and he had said no, and the reasoning was the same, that he doesn't want to create filler and create titles just to create titles, that he believes that the one title should have a meaning to it. He doesn't want a TV title over a North American title, or he just wants one title for a singles competitor. I just want to make a comment that during this media call, fans and journalists were allowed to put in questions. And there were a few female fans where questions were taken from, but there were no women journalists or women's wrestling websites that were questions were taken from. And I just thought that was very disappointing. I just wanted to note that. Nobody from their PR team has contacted me about it yet. But I just think it's kind of a shame. But what I really want to focus on is, what your thoughts were for this season. Harmony, did you watch WOW at all?
So I watched as much of it as I could. Unfortunately, I don't have the cable channel that it comes on, so I had to watch bits and pieces as I was able. That being said, what I watched, I really enjoyed. Like, I was really excited for WOW before it started. I was very disappointed that I couldn't follow the season as closely as I wanted to. What I saw was great. Like, the production value is good. The roster that they have for WOW is amazing. There are so many great names on there. Like, if you're going to build a division around anybody, build it around Tessa Blanchard. Like, they have Kiera Hogan, they have Holodead, they have Willow Nightingale, who's an indie person I really love, and I've been waiting for her to make it big. So, like, what I've seen has been great. It's like kind of campy. It's fun. It is a wrestling program you could watch with your kids, but it's not like boring or overly silly. Like, I really enjoyed what I was able to see. I just wish I could have watched more of it, I guess.
Warren, I know you're in Canada. Did you watch were you able to watch any of it?
Yes, I was.
Yay.
Yay. I think the smartest move that WOW did was to get Tessa Blanchard on the roster. That was fantastic. Yeah. And her feud with Santana Garrett was extraordinary. And they had a great match together as well for the title. I knew getting into this. I knew getting into it. I knew what to expect. The level of camp is fine, you know, but I still have like some issues with just some of the, you know, some of the characters being a little too much on the nose, you know, like Stephanie Smart, you know, and you know, who dresses up like a librarian, you know, the disciplinarian who has a paddle, you know. I'm like, okay, like I get it. I get it's the camp factor, but it also feels just a little out of place these days. And the one thing I think I would like, if we're talking just about gimmicks to begin with, just gimmicks, you know, and we've talked about this on previous occasions of the division. You know, I'd like them to be a little more sensitive. Let's put it that way, about certain issues. You know, Princess Aussie coming to the ring with her, you know, with her tribe of men, the didgeridoos, and I'm. It kind of makes me uncomfortable, really. You know, the white blonde princess surrounded by her retinue of Aboriginal loincloth men. You know, it just feels really strange. And while not to take anything that, you know, not to take anything away from Jesse Jones as well, you know, I get what they're trying to do, but it's also, you know, there would be a way to do a conservative Southern redneck type character without being so blatant into really drilling into very real and burning social issues in the United States. You know what I mean? There would be a way to pull it off without being, you know, on the nose again so harshly. But that being said, I mean, they have a roster of women which is fantastic. I mean, you know, Cobra Moon is there as well, right? Thunder Rosa is, she's fantastic. Kira Hogan, Eye Candy, I remember she was on the first episode, right? She was on the first show, and I think, you know, she blew everyone away. I think she's injured right now, though.
Yeah, that's Willow. She's got a neck injury, so she's going to be out for like the next year, which is a huge bummer.
Which is a shame. And then, of course, the Beast, who is a beast, and she's a thrill to look at. And Jungle Girl, who's, you know, a legend as well. I mean, they've got so many fantastic women there. And at some point, you could just let the women be women instead of tacking on such ridiculous gimmicks in some circumstances. Some work, you know, some work, others not so much.
Yeah, I honestly, that's on David McLean.
No.
He's semi stuck in the 80s. He wants it to be fun and campy, and then focus on entertainment, or focus on, the athletic part of it. And he did a little bit better, you know, this time around. He did. He got real athletes. You know, and not to say that his women before were not athletes, but he got some fantastic wrestlers. He did get Tessa Blanchard, Kiera Hogan, Jessica Havoc, Thunder Rosa, you know, but he also has women that have been on the roster for a while that are finally getting to shine. Amber O'Neil, Barbie Hayden, you know, all those women. And then he's also hiring people like Sarah Wolf, who was Razor on the show, who has a very clear talent as a character. And she's made that a point of pride when I had my interview with her, that she really, really likes the character part of it. And it shows, because her promos, man, are killer. They're like some of the best promos in the business. I'm going to spill a little bit of tea. I won't be very specific here. But in one of my interviews, I did speak with a wrestler who had complaints about her character and had said it to David McLean. And David had basically not budged. That's, you know, he makes it a point of pride to say that the characters are based off the real women, and in a lot of cases they are. But there are some cases where I think he just wants to make a superhero, quote unquote, and so he wants to make it bigger than life. And so when the women have complaints, well, this isn't really me. You're not really representing me. He's not really willing to budge on that character so much. I think he really does focus a lot on the character part of it as opposed to the actual women. And that's why I wanted to have these interviews with them, because I wanted to show our readers and our listeners, like, hey, these are real wrestlers that have been around for a long time and have done some fantastic things even outside of WoW. I think improvements, let's talk improvements. So next season, they've already said that they don't want it more than an hour long. And I think that's a shame. Axis has wanted to keep them within an hour. They wanted to keep it within an hour. And I think that's selling a product. That's so that you come back next week for more. That's what that is. I find that such a shame, because last night and their season finale, they had Jessica Havoc versus Tessa Blanchard. And that fight should have been given at least 15 minutes. And I think it was given less than 10. And that's a shame. Like, let these women shine. Give them time to run around the ring. Give us time to really invest in their characters as well, because we're not given time to invest in their characters. It's like, oh, here's the disciplinarian, and they're making jokes at the commentary table about, oh, I bet you'd like to get spanked with that paddle.
Yeah.
Like, or, you know, Jessie Jones, who I've been told by people who work with her that, you know, make wrestling great again. That was her line. She wasn't fed that. She just said it, and they ran with it. Give us time, you know, like, and the person that told me this said, well, that's just her, and she's not meaning to offend anybody. Okay, but then give us time to understand that, because you're not. You're giving us an hour where you have 6 women, and they get 5-minute matches and little promos here and there, and then we're getting commercials. And we don't have any investment, especially if you're not aware of them prior to the season, to invest in any of them. You're just like, oh, here's a fan favorite. Well, if you're new to this show, how well, that's not my fan favorite, you know, like, how I don't know that person. So I'm gonna stop rambling. Harmony, what do you think they can improve on for next season?
Well, I have so many thoughts about it, and I want to be, you know, I want to be clear about the fact that I have not got to see a lot of complete episodes of the show, so my impression of it might not be super accurate. I want to see the cheesiness toned down. I agree with that. My impression of the first season is that they were just throwing everything they could at the wall to see what stuck.
Yeah.
Different kind of matches, different kind of team ups. Here's everything we've got. We have 8 episodes. Let's see what works. I want to see them focus on those things that work. I really would like to see different people at the commentary table. That was a notable weakness of WoW from my perspective. I think I'd like to see some like women's wrestling names that we know at the commentary table. And again, please jump in if this has happened and I'm just not aware of it. But like, Allison Kay is an awesome commentator. She's been great in Rise and Shimmer. Why not bring her in? Why not bring some other people in who can bring in some personality and also talk about the wrestlers a little more intelligently instead of just like making stupid jokes about paddles and stuff, because that just doesn't bring anything to the show. I'm really excited there's going to be tag team wrestling. I hope that some of the tag team ups that I know are available on the WoW roster are allowed to participate. Like, if you know Holodead and Cobra Moon, aka Thunder Rosa, they're the Twisted Sisters, kind of in the indie circuit. They are awesome together. I would love to see them run it. I'd also like to see some other really well-known women's tag teams come in. If they could get like Allie and Rosemary out of Impact somehow, let them do Demon Bunny, that would be amazing. Yeah. So I'd like to see some more established teams come in and bring that cred. And also, like, I haven't seen a lot of Jessie Bell. I haven't seen a lot of what you mentioned with the Aboriginal tribe with the wrestler, and that sounds really weird and uncomfortable. I agree. That should go away. Like,
yeah.
So I'll just secondary. That'll be my last thing. I'll endorse Warren's discomfort and hope that they just get rid of that for the second season.
Okay, I think we're all pretty much in agreement, and I think what's important is that there is an all-female women's wrestling promotion that is on TV and a weekly thing, and that was renewed, that it got enough views and enough support that it is going to be continuing. So that's our takeaway from this whole thing. So
maybe the last thing. Sorry.
Go ahead.
I wasn't sure if I was talking over someone. The one thing, the last thing that I'd like them to do as well is, you know, it was a very short season to begin with, you know, and I think it would be good to not like tape all of your series like within, I think they did it within 2 days, 2 or 3 days, something like that. Like it was they had a very short time frame to tape their shows. I think it really does benefit when you can stretch them out and not sit on your taping schedule or your whatever you've got in the can and just like, well, let's just put this out, because then you do have time to react to, you know, what's working, what's clicking. Then we can twist things around. That was one of my main gripes with the first long extended period of NXT UK when they were leading into Blackpool. They had so much footage taped leading into it that they had to broadcast 2 hours a week instead of the one that they had scheduled to try and cram everything in. Rhea Ripley had won the title like in August, something like that, and it only became like canon in November. And then as the show goes along, you're like, oh, well, this guy, that's not clicking. I'm not connecting with him. But they actually, they shot an angle with him and so on and so forth. So that's something that I feel it would benefit the show as well. Smaller or shorter taping periods, more frequent, so that they can at least try stuff out, change things on the fly and see what happens.
Harmony, any last thoughts? I want to get to the next news piece. But any last thoughts you got on this?
I guess the only last thought I have is I agree with Warren. I'd like to see it spaced out a little more. And I really, really hope the first season ends up somewhere where it can be binge watched, like Amazon Prime or Netflix.
Yeah.
Just because if you look at what that did for like Lucha Underground, for example, like their Netflix bump was huge. It did so much for that show for people to be able to access it. And I think for what they're hoping to do, they're going to, even though I know they want to like keep the footage, make money off of it, I totally get it. If they just put it somewhere people can watch it, I think more and more people are going to be drawn to the product. So I hope that's in the plan somewhere. That's my last thought.
Okay. And I agree. I think there's been a lot of complaints about international, like getting to watch it internationally and all that stuff. So I hope it becomes more available. So we'll kind of go ahead and go into our third and last news quote unquote story. So March is Women's History Month. Yesterday was International Women's Day. And I just wanted to kind of briefly talk about that, because obviously with women's wrestling, it's really important to recognize the influencers in women's wrestling it's allowing us to move forward with this evolution. And it's, surprise, not just Stephanie McMahon. She would like me to believe it is. She'd like me to believe WWE started all this, but it's not true.
That was really cool. Stephanie to just invent women's wrestling for us.
Right, and that's so nice. Thanks, Steph. So I guess what I really just want to get down to is, I'll go through each one of you. We can each talk about who we think is a women's wrestling influencer, whether it be in general or to you specifically, and then why. So Warren, why don't you go ahead and give us your influencer?
Man, I had difficulty. I had trouble zeroing it down. I'm not sure if I'm going to spoil anything that Harmony has ready, but like if I'm thinking like very recently in the uptick of women's wrestling, you can't discard Sarah Amato, her contribution in the development of women in NXT. And then I was thinking back and like Manami Toyota, who is probably the greatest women's wrestler of all time. She's so fantastic, and she has such a storied history in Japanese women's wrestling. But I think I am going to go with Mildred Burke, who started wrestling in the 30s, and she was something like, she had an office job. She was like a stenographer, like the quintessential women's job, back then, and she'd wrestle by night, and she actually started, when she started wrestling dudes, because there were no other women who were wrestling. She wrestled like 200 guys during the 30s and lost once. Now it probably helped that, she was in love with and was married to the promoter, Billy Wolf. That will probably help you get over, but she she nonetheless, like, she was the original women's wrestling badass back then. And then there was the whole situation. Then she and Wolf, Wolf he was a womanizer. He slept around a lot. They got a divorce. And then he basically blackballed her from the NWA. Like, she could not wrestle anymore. And if you want to talk about a screw job, in the 50s, she ended up wrestling, if my memory serves me right, she ended up wrestling a woman who was Billy Wolf's sister-in-law or daughter-in-law. It was Billy Wolf's daughter-in-law, and they ended up shooting on each other. It was for a championship title. It ended up being a shoot fight. It was supposed to be like a 2 out of 3 falls. And she being Mildred, gave up a fall to the other woman, and they called the match. They ended the match there, and she was like, they were giving her, she gave the other woman won the title, and that was that, So it's not necessarily someone we hear about too often because she's not part of WWE canon, of course, but for the time in the 30s, doing intergender wrestling in a moment where no one wanted to see women wrestle, it's something that, to me, it's important that her story gets out and that we remember her in these types of situations, because what she did was absolutely remarkable.
And for all the people out there who are like, why does Kristen have men on these women? What is a women's wrestling podcast? Why is there men on it? Like, if there's nothing that shows you like how much of an advocate Warren is, he's picked 3 women technically right there before actually choosing one. I think that's very funny. Personally, I think it's really funny. I think it's a good choice.
Made you laugh, I guess.
I think it's really great. It's a very Warren thing. Like, oh, choose one person. Let me name off 2 and then choose one. That's amazing. Harmony, what do you think? Who's your influencer?
So first off, I love, Warren, that you went with Mildred Burke. Awesome.
Yep.
Thank you.
So I also struggled with the idea of an influencer. I guess I went the circuitous Warren route. I was like, I thought about Japanese women's wrestling. Obviously, like, Meiko Satomura is a huge influence who's finally getting her due, which is awesome. Bull Nakano is, like, in my heart, my favorite wrestler of all time. So I thought about talking about her for a bit. But I really want to talk about Fisto, because Fisto she's a pioneer, and we recently got the very, very unfortunate news that she is actually retiring. This is the 3rd time she has retired, but I think this one's going to stick because apparently her knee just no longer has cartilage in it, which makes it hard to wrestle. But she's a wrestler from Canada. She's been active for 21 years. She's basically like the Aja Kong of North American women's wrestling. Like, she's been active forever. She's done it all. She started in Quebec. Like, she has held so many titles. She was the first CZW Ironman champion that was female. She was banned from wrestling in Ontario for a time because she wanted to do an intergender contest, and the sports commission said no, and she fought it and won. Like, she's worked so hard and she's done so much, not just to bring herself up, but to support other women's wrestlers as well. Like, I got to know her through watching Shimmer. She's kind of a mainstay of, like, the Shimmer roster. And she's done so much to train and support and promote other women. It's an amazing thing to see. Like, she was on Team Pog with Jordan Grace for a while, and, like, she actually kind of helped Jordan Grace edit and put together that DMs of an indie wrestler guide that she did. Like, she's been really supportive of Mia Yim. She's done all of these great things to help other women, and she's also been in all of these super hardcore, amazing matches with dudes. Like, she has a match with Necro Butcher that's, like, one of the scariest things I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And through this all, she has just been like she's tough and she's hardcore and she's brave, like, and she's a really, really technically talented wrestler. Like, her Burning Hammer, I've seen it in person. It brought tears to my eyes. Just fucking beautiful. And she's given her life in her, 21 years to this business. And, like, To this day, she's not been signed with a major company. I don't think she gets the respect she deserves. I don't think she gets the love she deserves. And I'm sorry if that was rambling. I get very emotional about Lufisto, but my hope is that now that her career may actually be ending, people will look back and really realize what she gave to wrestling, and the fact that intergender wrestling is what it is, and the fact that Shimmer is what it is. Like, all of these, like, Stephanie McMahon likes to think that she started the women's revolution. I think Lufisto actually started the women's revolution, and I just hope she gets the credit she deserves for that.
And I mean, that's an amazing choice. And I actually have an interview in the works for Fightful with Fisto. Yeah, I just got the questions to her a few days ago, and she was going to make the decision whether or not to write out the answers or get on the phone with me. And I think we probably decided that she could write them out, because I want her to spend the time, since this is her retirement interview, quote unquote, to really, you know, go through and then it's easier for me to deal with long quotes than it is to sit and like make somebody sit with me for 2-3 hours to go over and talk with me. So I think that's what she's going to do, is kind of write her own little quotes for me. But yeah, that's coming soon to Fightful. She just DM'd me today and said that she got the questions. So I'm hoping, knowing her, she's very quick on getting them back. So it's a really great choice. I want to go ahead and apologize if you can hear at all in the next 20 minutes. My landlord is over. My shower head just decided to pop off the other day. Like, it was like, I can't take this pressure, and it just popped off and fell. And I was like, oh, cool. And then I tried to do like my mom would do, and like get up there and try to fix it myself. And it's on there so tight that I can't get the shower head off. So I had to call him, and he's here. Couldn't do anything about it, but he promised he would be quiet. So we'll see. So I apologize if you can hear some banging or anything. Really quickly, my person, for obvious reasons, is Renee Young. Yay! You know, when I think of somebody who really influences my life and makes it easy for me to push forward in my job, Renee Young's an easy choice. You know, and she has a really rich background. You know, wrestling was not where she was going to end up originally, and in her mind, you know, she was, you know, she was trained in improv. She had moved to LA to become a comedy actress. That didn't work out so well for her. She went back to Toronto and started doing sports broadcasting for The Score. So she did all kinds of sports broadcasting before she ever got to wrestling. In 2012 is when she signed with WWE, and then a quick year later, she's on commentary. Long 5 years later, she's the first woman to call an entire episode of Raw. And then, you know, she's filling in for Coachman. And I think like less than a month later, WWE's like, oh, okay, this makes sense. And now she's full-time. She's done a lot of firsts for women in journalism, especially for WWE. And I think she's personally an inspiration that, you know, I didn't start off with wrestling, obviously. I started off in all sorts of sports as well. So I think to me, she's an inspiration that there's no ceiling, and that you can keep reaching up and up and up, and that you can keep evolving, that you don't have to be like, well, I started in basketball, so I have to stay in basketball. Like, no, you can keep reaching out and relearning things and learning new things. She's a huge inspiration for me. We'll go ahead then and get into what's probably going to be the longest aspect of this podcast, which is Fastlane predictions, because it's such a bumblefuck, if I'm being honest. So we'll start with the hardest one, which in my head it's like that puzzle box that you open in Hellraiser, and then Pinhead shows up to take you to hell with him with all his Cenobites. That's this match for me, is the Becky versus Charlotte. So for those who are listening to a wrestling podcast but never watch wrestling for some reason, Becky is injured.
I love this segue. I'm excited now.
Right. Becky is injured, quote unquote, and through some fuck all, she won the Royal Rumble, but was taken away from the actual WrestleMania match by Vince, supposedly. And then Charlotte was thrown in just because. And now we've landed at this, where Becky and Charlotte have to fight each other. Charlotte, for some reason, gets it in no matter what. And she will be in the WrestleMania match no matter the outcome. But Becky, if she wins, she's in the WrestleMania match. If she doesn't win, she's not. And her suspension keeps going. What? So, Harmony, why don't you give me your thoughts on this in your final prediction?
And okay.
And good luck.
Thank you. So yes, this is the lament configuration of Fastlane. And I love the idea of Charlotte Flair as just like the pinhead of WWE's women's wrestling, where she'll just appear out of a closet and be like, "Surprise!
Yep.
Like,
you opened the puzzle box.
Yep.
Yep.
I feel a little frustrated with this, first off, because like a Becky versus Charlotte, like them having a rivalry is what I was rooting for, like for most of the last couple of years. Like I've been waiting for this to happen. I've been waiting for the pin to get pulled on it. I'm so happy it's actually happening. I hate the way that it is actually unfolding, which is just a thing with WWE. It's like everything, it's like a monkey's paw of wrestling. Like every wish I make comes back and bites me in the ass with this company. And I've just like made peace with it. I agree. I don't understand why Becky Lynch has to fight to keep her WrestleMania slot because she won the Royal Rumble. Like
that makes no sense.
It doesn't. It's like, why should I give a fuck about anything that happens on WWE if Vince McMahon can just get bored and change it? Like,
right.
Why should I be invested in it at all?
Right.
Like, okay, okay, if that's how they're going to play it, then fine. I'll just watch the match. Obviously, Becky's going to win. That's the other thing that's stupid about this decision. It takes all of the narrative tension out of it because there's no fucking way that Becky's not going to be in that WrestleMania match. Like,
right.
It's just not going to happen. So I guess we're going to watch Becky and Charlotte have a match. I'm confident it's going to be a good match because it's always fun to watch them wrestle. And it'll either be cool and Becky will win, or there will be some stupid interference ass pull, probably from Ronda Rousey. And Becky will win by accident, but whatever. Becky's going to win, and I'll just patiently wait until WrestleMania for this whole clusterfuck to settle down. That's my prediction. It will be annoying until WrestleMania.
Warren, thoughts?
Yes, I do have a few thoughts. Thank you.
Just a few.
Yeah. Just a few. You know, it's amazing, isn't it? How WWE can have a sure thing in their hands and still find a way to make something really convoluted and bizarre and just make things really more complicated than they should. Don't you find that they're really capable of that? That's like their number one skill. It wasn't hard. It really wasn't hard. You have Becky Lynch win the Royal Rumble. She's hurt. She's injured. Okay, you want to suspend her, whatever, but she's hurt. She has to claw her way back to her spot, and then she wins her spot at WrestleMania. It's pretty simple. You know, underdog. We love ourselves a good underdog. She's been a legitimate underdog in the eyes of fans since mid 2017 when she dropped the SmackDown Women's title and WWE wasn't doing anything with her. So I don't understand how any of this made any sense to anyone sitting around a table. Like Harmony said, if Becky Lynch is supposed to be this new, and I hate to say it, I hate to go down this comparison road, but if she's supposed to be like a new Stone Cold-esque, let's call it that, babyface, where she does whatever she wants, it's her rule, she doesn't trust anyone, her fight had to be, it's very simple, hey, I won the Royal Rumble, you should not be taking this away from me. And those are words that should have come out of her mouth regularly. Every promo she had a chance to do so. I understand that she didn't want to, the whole thing, it's like, I don't want to get checked out by WWE doctors. I don't trust you people. And that makes sense. Why would you trust Stephanie McMahon and Triple H, really? It all makes sense. They were being affable baby faces in this situation, but we completely understand why she wanted to do it. Why she wouldn't want to do it. Why she wouldn't want to be checked out. So she gets suspended. Charlotte gets thrown in, so on and so forth. Then magically, last week. Oh, the suspension is lifted. I'm a magical leprechaun, and I come and I lift. I take away all of the suspension. Oh, there will no be charges pressed. Everything will be fine. Don't you worry.
Oh my God.
And it's like, why? It's just my moment, I guess. Why did we sit through everything about wanting Becky to get her place back, all the injustices, when just like that, she gets everything's backhanded to her? I'll tell you why. It's because they decided to turn Ronda Rousey within 4 to 5 days. That's why they did it, because they didn't know what they were doing otherwise. It's so weird. Like, and if I had been booking this, I would have put real stakes to this match. I would have put, okay, listen, Charlotte versus Becky. If Becky wins, she gets the spot at whoever wins faces Ronda at WrestleMania. It's just that simple. Charlotte has no real stakes to this match other than having Becky being added in. And I mean, having someone else added to the match, no big deal. You just watch some tapes, train for them, it's like, get ready. But otherwise, she doesn't have any real stakes. There's no real reason that Charlotte would want to absolutely win this match. I would have put it like, whoever wins faces Ronda one-on-one at WrestleMania, and I'm okay with the triple threat, but ultimately that's what I would have wanted, a one-on-one match at WrestleMania, not a triple threat.
What's your prediction, Warren?
Becky wins, god damn it, Becky wins.
Okay, I need to get more I need to take tips from Sean, because if you ever watch Fightful Pods with Warren and Sean, Warren is so much more timid and handled and doesn't go on these roundabout 12-minute rants. And then he gets on my pod and it's
12 minutes.
Free!
Hang on a second.
Free!
It wasn't 12 minutes.
Well, okay, sure.
He's got a lot in his heart. It's all right.
Thank you, Harmony.
Well, Harmony, don't. Okay, because
let's have Harmony on the show again. I want to do another panel with Harmony.
I talked to him multiple times a day, and it's like, man, I could tell you word for word what he was probably going to say.
I would listen to that podcast if you ever want to do that.
Okay, cool. So yeah, for me, it's sort of like whoever wrote this, whether it be the actual McMahons or creative, whoever decided this is the route they were going to be, it's like they took a page from my book in college, and where I just wrote a paper the day of, 2 hours before it was due, half hungover, just not paying attention, and then got it back, and in red it was like, how did you come up with this ending with all of this? What? They don't get it. And it's sort of like they took a page out of my book, and I agree. It's so convoluted to get to where they were going to get anyway. I feel like there was a much easier path, but we all know that they don't listen to us, no matter how many times they tell us they do listen to us, and that they don't take the easy way to anything. Because they think that, the more convoluted something is, more entertaining it is. But we all know that's not true. That's not true. You
gotta swerve us. Gotta swerve. Gotta keep us on our toes.
It's like they want to make the movie Inception every week. We don't need all these layers, and we don't need all of that. Just give us what we want. Obviously, the prediction is Becky, the end. Let's talk about the next match. SmackDown Women's title match. Where's Asuka? Asuka versus, Mandy Rose. Warren, tell us about this match, and then what's your prediction?
The way they've handled Asuka, since Royal Rumble makes absolute zero sense, because she had Becky Lynch tap clean. She won against Becky Lynch, the top babyface in the company, clean, and she's barely been on television. And I think it just goes to show how still very short-sighted booking is in WWE, because the top 3 women in the company are vying for one single title, and 2 of those women aren't even on the Raw brand. They're on SmackDown. So Asuka ends up with a roster of women who haven't been properly built up as contenders to the title. Oh, but Naomi. No, Asuka fought Naomi right after Royal Rumble and beat her. Pretty fair and square. No questions asked. And it wasn't even that good a match. But, you know, that one's out of the way. So, again, if WWE is, you know, looking to build their women and create, you know, real stars and elevate them, well, on one hand, they do have to do things like they're doing right now with Mandy Rose, where they have to put her in matches with Asuka, not only because of the profile, but because just wrestling with someone like Asuka, who is a vet, who can accompany and show Mandy stuff in the ring, you know? Like, working with talented people will rub off on you, so it's good for Mandy what they're doing. You know, and everyone's like, oh, what a Mandy Rose man. But who else would it have been on the SmackDown roster? We would have said the same thing about Sonya Deville. We would have probably got a better match out of it, but Sonya's not anymore, isn't in any better position. The Iconics aren't either. Naomi's been all but squishity squashed. You know, I mean, they painted themselves into a corner. And I think we're seeing the results here. And I have no idea what they have ready for Asuka at WrestleMania. But as far as Fastlane goes, Asuka wins. There's no question in my mind.
How many do you? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I gotta jump in here because Sonya Deville would have been such a better opponent for Asuka.
Yeah.
Come on, dude.
Oh,
really?
for sure.
Like, now, I've been really frustrated with Asuka's thing. I'm also like, I can't figure out whether I don't like Mandy Rose or I don't like Corey Graves talking about Mandy Rose.
It's the latter. For me, it's
like, I'm not
sure.
Like,
yeah.
If Corey Graves could just maybe just be escorted away from the commentary table from her matches, I probably would at least be able to watch them.
He's kind of turning into a modern day Jerry Lawler, isn't he?
Yeah, but he also, he's just such a fucking creep. I'm so tired of hearing his voice. I don't understand why everybody's okay with him talking about female talent like he does. Like, the one highlight is whenever Beth Phoenix tells him to shut up when they share a commentary table, like an angel gets their wings. That's the best part of my night. But yeah, like, so it's not entirely Mandy's fault that she's not my favorite wrestler. That being said, I feel like Sonya Deville would have been such a better opponent. We would have gotten better matches. Sonya Deville makes more sense. Sonya Deville is also good at those like scrappy back and forth programs that you'd want to see with Asuka versus like an up and comer. Like Sonya's program with Ruby Riott in NXT was like really fun to watch because of that. And Mandy's just like, she's just not there yet. And it's not a bash on her. I don't think she's able to carry those matches like she needs to be for them to be watchable. And it makes her look undertrained, and it makes Asuka look like her title run is being wasted, which for Asuka is true. Like, I don't understand why they're not giving her more to do. I don't understand why, like, okay, if there's no one for her to wrestle her on SmackDown, find someone on Raw. Let her go do stuff at NXT. Like, the pay-per-views are dual branded now. So why can't they find a single person to wrestle Asuka who can actually, like, give us a credible challenge and a good match?
Right.
So I think Asuka's going to win unless WWE continues their history of making me sad, in which case Mandy Rose will win. We'll see.
Yeah, I want to preface by saying that I'm not, I've heard the Mandy hate train, right? Like, I'm not on that train. I don't hate her. I don't think that she obviously is on the same level as Asuka. They haven't made her on the same level as Asuka. They could easily give her more time to build that up and train and all. But, she just came out of this disgusting, weird feud with Naomi. Well, I'm going to take your man because you laughed at me once or something. Like, I mean, they put her from that feud to Asuka. But what? So nobody believes it. And you're right. Graves is disgusting when she comes out. It's so gross. And it makes it very hard to want to like her. Like, their treatment of her makes it hard for me to like her. Not her. She's done nothing to make me like, oh, I don't like her. It's all them. It's all them. And how they treat her and where they put her. That's what makes it disgusting to me. My fear is that you're right, that they hate their fans and that they let Mandy win. I mean, that's my biggest fear. I'm just gonna be hopeful and say that Asuka wins, and that they learn that, you know, maybe they thought that we were too dumb to handle 2 big feuds at the same time in the women's division, but we're not. You can build up 2 huge feuds; it's completely possible, and give those women on SmackDown a chance. I mean, hello, Nikki Cross.
Yes.
Hello. Like, hello. You bring up somebody who is already, like, she's already likable. Everybody likes her. She's already got these weird, like, mini feuds with people behind the scenes, you know, like, she just wants to play with everybody. Why not, you know, who's ready for Asuka? Well, Nikki wants to play with Asuka. Nikki's ready to play. Like, why don't you give that to her? You could have had that from the beginning. You could have brought her in and said, here's your feud from the second she was brought up, but they didn't do that. They got all flustered with the Ronda shit. And they probably got too many people on that they couldn't handle another feud. Like, let me write. Just let me do it. I could do it. Let me in, coach. But they won't. My prediction for this is Asuka, and I'm gonna be hopeful and end it with that. The last women's match for Fastlane is one that's much simpler and nicer and sweeter. We have a women's tag team title match, Boston Hug Connections with Sasha and Bayley versus, I forgot their stupid name, Nia Jax and Tamina.
The Samoan Slaughterhouse.
Simone. I thought it was still like no, I don't know. I don't pay much attention to them, I guess, because it's like all cringe when I watch them. Harmony, what's your prediction there, dear?
Oh gosh. Obviously, unless something goes super weird, I feel like Boston Hug are going to take this one.
Yeah.
The one thing that gives me pause is I think they might want to build up some kind of rivalry for WrestleMania, and in that case, we might see Bayley and Sasha drop the titles briefly just so they can get them back. I feel like that's a possibility. But also, we've seen the fact that we've seen Bayley and Sasha start to appear on NXT, and they've been showing up at NXT house shows and tapings. That tells me that they're going to be hanging on to those belts for a while because they're trying to build up cross competition, especially the fact that like Io Shirai and Kairi Sane recently posted on Twitter that they got to meet Boston Hug Connection and they want to challenge for the belts. I was just like, fuck yes, that at WrestleMania, please. I guess the fact I'm talking about another match shows how not excited I am about this match. So I apologize for that. But yeah, it's a walk in the park. It's going to be Sasha and Bayley. I'm sure Nia will do something scary and Tamina will stand there silently for a while and then it'll be over. That's my prediction.
All right. What say you, Warren?
I echo everything Harmony just said. I really do believe that they're going to stretch this out, this being Boston Hug as champions for a while, because they're sort of becoming ambassadors of those titles. You know, they're hyping the fact that, oh, we're going to defend them on SmackDown, on NXT, but it hasn't happened yet. So they're going to do a round of title defenses like that. I'm actually predicting that Boston Hug are going to defend the titles at TakeOver, and that would be really sweet because on top of that, the reception that that Bayley and Sasha have been having since popping up at NXT house shows and just that NXT taping that they did, that they aired 2 weeks ago now, the reaction they got, I mean, the crowd would eat it up. I mean, it'd be such a fantastic moment. And will it be against Io and Kairi? I'd be down for that. Why not? That'd be great. But I'm really thinking they're going to hang on to them right into WrestleMania because they're going to use them on TakeOver, which is fantastic. And there's, I mean, why would you put any titles on Nia Jax and Tamina? Like,
right.
Why though?
I agree. I think they've been building them up at these NXT house shows for a reason. They're clearly the most likable as far as like the tag teams could have been chosen. They're clearly the most likable choice, and they clearly did so much in NXT. So throwing them down there to sort of promote, quote unquote, the titles is huge. I think they're doing the right thing. And what was it, a few days ago, they went to NXT Pittsburgh and they fought Rhea Ripley and Reina Gonzalez.
Yeah.
When I saw Rhea Ripley and Reina Gonzalez with those two, my heart, like, be still. Like, I was so excited because, hello, you could not put a more perfect person against this sweetheart Bayley than Rhea Ripley. Like, you couldn't. There's nobody, even Shayna Baszler, there's nobody more vicious and fearsome and, like, scares the shit out of me than Rhea Ripley. And then you got this sweetheart Bayley, and it's, like, perfect. And it gets me excited because I know this is NXT, but it gets me excited that they're thinking of, like, hey, NXT UK, let's throw them in there. Yes, please, give me some of that. Give me some cross-branding because I love it. I think, personally, that Sasha and Bayley are going to come out of it just because they've obviously been pushing them with Kyrie and Io and now Rhea and Reina. Let's get them all together. I think that's their plan. I think it's going to be a pretty decent match just because, Nia and Tamina are bigger. But I think that in the end that's going to be the goal, is that those two win.
And let's be honest, Ripley and Gonzalez are what WWE would like Nia Jax and Tamina to be.
Right.
Let's be frank.
That's what they're trying.
Yeah. I got to see Rhea Ripley and Reina Gonzalez at the NXT show in Columbus, and they are so good together as a tag team.
Yes.
Like, they're so fun, and Rhea Ripley is terrifying. Like, in person, she's... I kind of wanted to hide from her, and I also kind of wanted to propose to her. I got...
That's exactly how I feel. Exactly how I feel.
She fought Candice LeRae, so that's kind of like a similar personality split. Like, Bayley and Candice feel very similar to me, and the chemistry was awesome. So I think, I would love to see that, Sasha and Bayley versus Reina and Rhea.
I agree. So that's our predictions for Fastlanes. We'll go ahead and ramp this up because we've gone slightly over an hour. Not that Sean cares. Sean lets me do whatever I want because he knows where the money's at, right?
That's right.
That's right. Warren, why don't you go ahead and tell the people where they can find you?
YouTube.com/Mr. Warren Hayes is where I do post shows, Raw and SmackDown post shows every Monday and Tuesday evening. I also do prediction shows when pay-per-views come around. I did a recently one for Fastlane over on youtube.com/Mr. Warren Hayes. And I'm also on Fightful Select, where I do my 205 Live NXT UK recap show. So if you subscribe to that, you can check that every week. And you can follow me on Twitter at Mr. Warren Hayes.
Mr. Warren Hayes. Harmony, my friend, plug away.
So I'm not as prolific as Mr. Warren Hayes, but I am able to be found on the internet. The easiest thing to do is just Google it. If you Google Daily DDT and Harmony, all my wrestling writing pops up. I'm at harmonycox.com. That's kind of like where all of my content lives. And you can always come talk to me about women's wrestling on Twitter at Harmonopoly.
Awesome. And no one is as prolific as Mr. Warren Hayes. Do yourself a favor and subscribe to Fightful Select. It's $5 a month to get all kinds of scoops. Hey, some of them I actually give to Sean. He'll probably tell you otherwise. Some of them are from me. Pretty cool. Go to Diva Dirt and get all your women's wrestling news there. I've still got a few more WoW Spotlight pieces that are dropping. Check out our Pioneer series for the Women's History Month. We are profiling women's wrestling influencers. Each one of our staff members is doing that. So check that out. I have some future interviews coming up. Fisto, for instance, for Fightful. And then I also have an interview piece that will be in before the end of March where I interview women wrestlers on who they were influenced by for Women's History Month. And then we'll have a future episode. As far as I know right now, we have Joe Soriano coming back and then Scarlett Harris, who is new to the show. I'm hoping. We haven't officially made that official yet, so don't quote me. But that's my hope. Thank you so much for stopping by and listening to Warren rant. I know it's hard. Thank you to Harmony for being on the show. She's a delight, and it was my first time getting her on any podcast, and I'm super, super happy that I got her. Thanks for stopping by, and we will talk to you in 2 weeks. Later.
Bye.